I'm Demethius Jackson, and you're listening to a reading of my book entitled The Realmsic Conquest, The Hero of Legend. Chapter 35. To memorize the entire collection of knowledge took part discipline, part patience, and part magic. Deep below the Temple of Learning, Fable stood before Kelm, Mavis, and Normandy. Her silver hair stood on edge, and her green eyes glowed the same shade of white, matching the surrounding walls, furniture, and shelves. She searched the holdings of the ancient archive buried within her own mind. Closing her eyes, she slipped into semi-consciousness, allowing the magical trance to control her mind. It took only a moment to find exactly what she was looking for. Her eyes suddenly shot open. Taking deep, rhythmic breaths, which lowered the tone of her voice, Fable began to tell the tale of the Realmsic crystal. 2,000 years ago, during the era of human history known as the Darkest Age, there existed a geographical region filled with great hopelessness and despair. Within this region, men existed as merciless scavengers. The weak were preyed upon by the strong, who in return were preyed upon by the wicked. As the innocent were slain daily, this region became known as the Realm of Terror, an abhorrent place where survival became the only form of living. Her eyes grew brighter as she slipped deeper into the memory. Throughout the years, the emotional distress of the region's inhabitants grew exponentially. It saturated the atmosphere, creating an energy force so powerful it became as physical a presence as the land itself. Both horrifying yet intriguing, the energy was unlike any other place on Earth. It lured unsuspecting travelers into the region, and with the deception of a skilled predator, ensnared them into its grasp. It fed upon raw emotions like an organic creature, and grew stronger from its host. But despite the loathsome and treacherous conditions of the Realm of Terror, none chose to leave it. For the people became as dependent upon the energy as it had become dependent upon them. Hearing rumors of this mysterious energy, a young couple traveled to the region to experience it for themselves. Upon their arrival, they were immediately overpowered by the invisible presence that tingled their senses. Fable briefly raised both her hands towards the ceiling, taking a deep breath. Even the air they breathed seemed thicker than any other place they'd previously traveled. The environment felt electrified. Flicking her fingers rapidly, she slowly lowered her hands as she continued. An unsettling force penetrated the couple's bodies and nestled within their cores. There was no doubt in their minds that something indeed existed among the people of this region, and they decided to stay permanently until it could be explained. For 2 years, the couple studied the energy and its effects. Surprisingly, no harm befell them during their stay. It was as if the very energy they hoped to understand shielded them from evil. Through meticulous observation, they noticed that the energy penetrated everything, and through it, all things were connected. They only needed to close their eyes to feel the oneness of all that surrounded them. Within this connection, the couple meditated daily. As their bond to the energy strengthened, so did their understanding of its true nature. Gradually, as if conscious of its own being, the energy revealed its origin. How? Kelm asked, moving from Normandy closer to Fable. Still in trance, she saw the light shining from her own eyes, illuminating the deep features of his face. He seemed drawn to her like a moth to a flame, only the flame she possessed was knowledge. Fable searched deeper into her mind. It revealed itself to them through mental visions, she replied. The energy created scenes within the couple's minds, forcing them to relive the violence of the region's earliest days. The emotions of those who were victimized poured into the land as fluidly as did their own blood. It left a concentrated metaphysical stain upon the region so deep that it subsequently evolved into the energy force experienced by all during that time. Despite the energy's terrible origin, the couple found beauty within it. They were seduced by the strength of its bond, yet the fragility of its essence. Its surface form was quite simple to understand, yet the depths of its presence revealed endless levels of complexity. They began to understand that the entire world was not a separate entity from themselves, and the objects around them were not merely inanimate. They were, in fact, physical extensions of their own selves. Greater still was the revelation that through the energy, they could outwardly affect their environment. In other words, they could physically move objects with only their minds. Within this knowledge, the couple surrendered themselves and experienced a spiritual shift in consciousness, unlike anything they'd ever felt. Instinctively, they disassociated from their former identities and were spiritually reborn as sun and moon. Controlling the energy within their bodies soon became second nature. As their confidence increased, so did their metaphysical abilities. While Sun focused his efforts on manipulating physical objects, Moon spent her time strengthening her mental abilities. She fell in love with its elegant and majestic nature and began referring to the art of energy manipulation as magic. Mavis's sudden gasp startled both Kelm and Normandy. So that's how magic began in the realm. His eyes lowered as he anxiously raked his fingers through his hair as if contemplating all that he'd heard so far. Correct, Fable nodded. Kelm pressed his arm against the bookshelf to support the weight of his body. I think what you're saying is that before the Realmsic crystal, magic had already existed. Correct again, Fable said. Kelm rubbed the back of his stiff neck. I don't understand. If magic was already established, then why did they need a crystal? His gaze locked with Fable's. Sun and Moon discovered that the energy and the region's history of violence were intimately related. Since mass emotion had created the energy, it came as no surprise that mass emotion continued to fuel it. But with no natural outlet, the energy pressurized, which occasionally exploded within their community in the form of violence. After careful consideration, Sun and Moon decided the time had come to share magic with others. The practice of magic, they hoped, would help alleviate the energetic pressure, which over time could quell the violence in the region altogether. Cautiously, the couple began teaching the use of magic to those they trusted, and then later to all those who wanted to learn for the betterment of themselves and their communities. These students were referred to as disciples of magic, which is a term still used today. Upon achieving a satisfactory level of utilization, they were then referred to as wizards. Sun and Moon, being the creators of magic, were identified as the first wizards, Mavis stated before Fable could finish. She confirmed his deduction with 2 slow nods. As magic continued spreading across the region, Sun and Moon unearthed a tragic discovery. The practice of magic was not actually alleviating the energetic pressure as they'd hoped. In fact, it was achieving the opposite. Magic's exponential growth was more than the region could handle. Because magic was fueled specifically by the region's energy, its presence could not exist beyond the physical boundaries of the region. And there existed no natural outlets for the increased energetic activity. Therefore, the region was slowly becoming unstable. The first wizards feared the inevitability of a critical overload. Such an event would be catastrophic. The imbalance would spiral the natural elements of the region into chaos, which could upset the equilibrium of the entire planet. If uncorrected, the world would potentially be rendered unsustainable, meaning they would have to somehow stabilize the region's energy. Kim fired a thought at Fable. He shifted off the bookshelf and stepped closer towards her. Yes, she replied. But how? Fable grabbed both of Kilm's hands. Sun and Moon commenced a spiritual embrace. Their power, their wisdom, their life force was intertwined into one sacred entity. Through them, the imperfect energy flowed, intermingling with their spirit of oneness. They guided it into a single solitary point, which materialized into a physical manifestation, a crystal. Ordinary in appearance, it was directly connected to the region's unyielding energy and contained unlimited magical power. By itself, the crystal was only a conduit for the realm's magic, or Realmsic, as some later came to call magic. But it served as the balancing pendulum for their environment. However, still, in the wrong hands, the crystal would bestow its possessor with inconceivable power and ability. Therefore, it now needed to be protected at all cost. As Fable concluded, she released her grip, allowing Kilm's hands to gently slip through her own, and her glowing eyes returned to normal. Normandy and Mavis stood speechless. Kelm rubbed his achy temples in disbelief. I... He tried to speak, but was still too much in shock. He took a moment to collect himself. I can't believe that after all these years, all these centuries, we've had it wrong. So the Realmsic crystal is not the source of magic. It's a conduit that stabilizes the magic that naturally exists within the realm. Correct. Fable crossed her arms across her chest, nodding. My goodness. If Damien knew what we now know, Mavis began. It's imperative that he never does, Fable interrupted. But wait. Mavis held up a hand as if pausing the group. Knowing this only reaffirms our convictions to protect the Realmsic crystal. But we're still no closer to reclaiming the kingdom than we were before. Mavis's eyes grew stern. Every day that we continue to run and hide the crystal, our people will suffer. And the longer it takes him to find us, the harsher his actions will become towards the Realmsic people. As you said before, there has been no one like Damien. The warlord is tenacious and vicious, and he won't stop until he either finds us or destroys the realm. Therefore, we must stop him. Fable, is there anything you have or know of that can help us? Kilm asked. Fable gave a mischievous smile. Why, yes, I think I do. If you're enjoying the story, don't forget to share it.